live. Okay, we're live. Hey guys, I got a treat for you tonight. Of course, this is DocG of DocG Presents and DocG of Hamilton Radio Oldies. I have a new friend. He's an antique dealer. He's here in Hightstown. His name is Gene Pascucci.
Correct.
And he goes by Genius because everybody calls him Genius. But we're going to start off with a little bit of his history. Gene, first of all, how did you get started in antiquing? What drew you to collecting stuff?
I saved coins since I was a little kid, and I've been doing coins and stamps since I was 10 years old. Then I branched into other things, and for the last 50 years, I've been doing anything from a postage stamp to a piano. Anything in between, doesn't matter what it is.
Okay.
But I'm more fascinated with chandeliers and lamps.
Well, when did you start? When you were young, or when you were
I started going to flea markets when I was like 15, 16 years old. Yeah. And I worked for 1 year in a box plant in Trenton, bought a van, and been doing this ever since for the last 50 years.
And I got to say, he's one of the most honest dealers around, guys. So he's definitely a real good guy. He's been around doing it a long time. And they're the ones that you always want to go to because they're the faithful ones, the ones you trust. So, Gene, in your escapades over the years, what have you found rare? What have you found that you really said, oh, this is really great. I found this somewhere.
Nothing that would change your life. Let's put it that way. I mean, I've sold some expensive things over the years, but haven't found anything that's life-changing. Let's put it that way. You're better off just with a gradual growth. Even if you find that home run item, eventually you'll just run out of steam. You'll squander it, and you're back to nothing. You're better off just working hard every day, in my opinion.
Well, some of the things that you have in here are like chandeliers and
well,
that's
my thing. I love chandeliers, and I love lamps because I can find them and I can fix them and turn them into money.
That's awesome. He also, do you rent out or do you sell stuff?
I actually just rented a lot of chandeliers to the Gilded Age HBO show for last year and this year. I've sold them and rented them most of the furniture, lamps, and chandeliers that they actually have on the show.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
And I guess the new show debuts somewhere around October because they're still shooting right now.
Okay.
And they're actually still buying more things. They were here just last week again.
Right. And you do clean outs too. He does a lot of clean outs.
I can organize clean outs.
As best he can.
Yeah, I don't really care to do them anymore.
You just look for stuff.
Yeah.
He looks for stuff, and if it's not good, he just doesn't.
Yeah, but I can refer the right people.
Right. Well, that's good. So again, you had 3 questions. Let's ask the 3 questions. Right. You're going to do a seminar, right?
I do lectures and appraisals, and I start them off with 3 questions. Let's see if anyone out there. And again, these are all things that Gene came up with. Nothing he heard, nothing he read. So, question number 1 is, in one word, what got us from the Big Bang to me being on this radio show at this moment? What got us from the Big Bang to me being on this radio show at this moment? One word.
I'm looking to see if anybody's out there watching.
If anyone has an answer, I'm listening.
Give them a countdown of 10. If they don't answer, anybody answers, then you can just answer it.
Well, we got 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time's up. The word, and again, in my opinion, is engineering. And if someone disagrees with that, you would need one hell of an argument to counteract that. The second question is, and I asked this to Gino, how did he get from his house to my store? And that is, again, a one-word answer.
And I got all 3 wrong, by the way. Go ahead.
How did he get
That's
from his house to my store? It's It's a one-word answer again. Anyone have a clue? And it's not his car, because that would be the wrong answer. Should I give him the answer?
A couple more seconds.
Okay.
Go ahead. You can give me the answer.
That answer is infrastructure. Who are the engineers?
I understand it's also a Wi-Fi connection.
Oh.
It's using the phone. Go ahead.
Anyone have a clue who were the first great engineers in the world? Or they were not humans and they were not of the animal world. They are of a smaller species.
When he said smaller, now that he said the answer, I need to know. I could have gotten it because I wasn't thinking.
Well, that's Monday morning quarterback. And in this
Yeah,
case,
if I did this,
it's
yeah.
Tuesday morning quarterbacks also.
That's true.
So the answer, again, in my opinion, is the bee. The honeybee were the first great engineers in the world. So if we study a honeycomb with its six-sided little sections, they all hold up each section, north, south, east, west, and every diagonal in between. So if we look at all the great domes in the world, you'd have to think that the honeycomb would have been the prototype for building. Design is used on many things. I actually have a lamp at house, a leaded glass lamp, and it's all in a honeycomb design, and it's got bees and flowers around the skirt of the lamp, which is pretty unusual for 1910.
Yeah.
Should I answer the fourth question?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, and since I'm big in chandeliers and lamps, my fourth question is, what did electric allow us to do that had never been done before in illumination?
I even got this wrong.
Again, what did electric allow us to
He's
do
laughing.
that had never been done before in illumination? Don't feel bad, Gino, because you know why I go to my dentist?
Yeah.
Because I don't know how to do implants.
Okay.
And that's why I'm on your radio show, because I don't know how to do it. So don't worry, it's not in your realm.
Okay.
You're not supposed to know.
I'm just a touchy
So,
guy.
anyhow, what did electric allow us to do that had never been done before in illumination? Should I give him the answer?
Yeah.
It allowed us to have down lighting. Down. Everything prior, from the first caveman's torch to an oil lamp to a candle to gas, kerosene, etc., was all up lighting. Now we have down lighting as of 1895. What else would you like to talk about, Gino?
What else would you like to talk about?
You want to talk about
your
sports? You talk about sports.
Hey, somebody's there. Hey, everybody. How you doing out there? Bubblegum Orchestra. They're a music artist, a friend of mine.
Oh, okay.
Hi, guys. Anything that you want. I'm giving you this time. Just basically,
We can talk about antiques too.
yeah. As I said, let's talk
All
about
right.
some antiques, like the
Okay.
Antique Roadshow.
I'll give you
This
a first.
guy is a live Antique Roadshow.
We went on a lookout today in Plainsboro. People were moving out. They had a beautiful mahogany dining room set from the 1940s made by a company called Batesville, which was like the Rolls-Royce model of its day. And I basically told them, we have a saying in this business, you're 20 years too late. And right now it's going to be 25 and 30 years too late pretty soon. But this dining room set, about 30 years ago, I sold for $6,000. And in today's world, maybe it's bringing 1,500 because modern design has eclipsed typical, what we call brown furniture. So younger people don't gravitate to furniture of that era much anymore. So the whole business has changed. Now, I also have another thing I coined, Gino, which you're going to like.
Yeah.
There are 3 BCs which changed the world. And actually, there are 4 now. I've made it 4. Again, these are all my observations. What does BC mean?
Well, before Christ.
Okay, now let's fast forward 2,000 years. And what do the 4 BCs mean according to Gene? Well, and this all changed the world.
Right.
So the BCs are before computers, before cell phones, before China, and before COVID.
Wow. That
all changed the world. So when eBay first goes into motion, I've got this antique shaker here that I think is very valuable. And then I go out and I see that 100 other people are trying to sell the same thing. So the internet is a double-edged sword. It's good for selling, but it also reduced the price of a lot of things.
Right.
So the internet is just like a sports move, a football move. Let's use football as my analogy. For every offensive play, there's a defensive play to counteract it. Agreed?
Agreed, yeah.
Okay. So it is the same in collectibles. The market is saturated. Unless you have items that were made, say, before 1910, say. I use 1900, 1910, which is the arts and crafts movement. And I'll go one step further. Let's go back to 1776, when we won our independence. Does anyone know how many people were in this country?
I don't know.
There was somewhere between 9 and 12 million. Now we morph into 1876, the 100-year centennial of the country, which was a great World's Fair. It was held in Fairmount Park in Philadelphia. How many people were in this country at that time in 1876? You got a clue?
I don't know.
There was 78 million people here. And just like today, 2% of the people controlled 98% of the wealth. Even more so, more wealth was accumulated in 1876 than any other time in history, for the sheer fact there was no income tax.
Oh, yeah.
So if you made millions, you made millions. So now let's go to 1976, the bicentennial. How many people were here for that? It was 278 million. Forget about how many people were here now. We don't even know. In fact, that brings me up to a great joke about the wall. You want to hear it? Okay. This guy, he says, I'm all for Trump and that wall. He says, I believe that 100% now. He says, I just came back from China and I didn't see any Mexican people there. That's a good joke.
That's funny. That's funny.
That's funny.
Not to be political, but we get it.
Yeah. And it's a very fair assumption. And it's not being racist. It's not being mean. Right. It is a fair assumption. So, as I just told you, we got 278 million people in 1976. There's probably 336 million now, to the best of my calculations. Mm-hmm. And stuff was just mass produced. But in 1876, there was not anything mass produced of quality. There's always been junk, and there's always will continue to be so.
Always gonna be junk.
So I know when I was a kid, there were no dollar stores. They hadn't even been born yet.
5 and 10s.
Yeah, but now dollar stores dot the landscape just like storage units do.
Yeah.
Wait,
it's interesting.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Storage units, where you go and you put your stuff in that you can't put in your house in a storage unit, but then you can't afford to pay the storage unit,
right?
So you lose everything.
Out of sight, out of mind. Let's just say you're paying $150 a month, right?
Yeah.
Now you're at $1,500 for a year.
Yeah.
For stuff that you forgot you had.
Right.
But they're building more storage units. Pretty amazing. I bought out a storage unit that was in storage for 20 years. 20 years. The storage bill was $20,000 for the 20-year period. Mm-hmm. The stuff was in horrendous condition. It was antique. It all needed to be fixed. I wound up paying $2,000 for what was in the storage unit.
Right.
And I had to ask the owner, I said, can I just ask you why you kept this here for 20 years? You know what his answer was?
He forgot about it.
No. He said, we thought our kids would want it.
Oh, Jesus.
And the kids showed up there. One of them took a mirror and one of them took a picture and they left. So, again, it's a style that does not necessarily sell anymore. So, the 1776 model does not sell. The 1876 model does, in most cases. But in today's world, breakables have gone so down in price. Hummels hit the bottom. Royal Daltons hit the bottom.
Yeah.
Yadros are about to hit bottom. And most people don't even know how they're made, but the big ones are made in pieces and they're glued together. I've got one here that just fell apart in 2 pieces.
Oh, jeez.
And that is unlike... I handled all of Helen Beam's antiques over the years,
mm-hmm.
and she was pretty famous in Trenton. She's in 158 museums, including the Trenton museums.
Right.
And her things were made all in one piece. They do not fall apart. That's why they were expensive. I actually watched them being made over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, if we look at all modern collectibles, there's no future for them because there's more collectibles than there are people that want them. But if we go back to 1876, in that population, there would have been a minuscule amount of anything good made.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a supply and demand, and there's 2 things that change the price of everything. It's style and technology. Remember when you had a flip phone? You thought that was cool? Now, nothing. What's coming out now? The iPhone 16's coming out.
My daughter's got a wristwatch. It's like Dick Tracy. You remember Dick Tracy? Yeah. They got the little wristwatch, and she answers people on that rather than the phone.
When I first started, I had the briefcase phone.
Yeah, the bag phone. The old bag phone.
No, it was a briefcase.
And then they went to the bag phone.
Yeah, then you took the phone out. It was like the Get Smart phone. I mean, it was funny as hell.
Yeah.
And I think they were smarter in 1876 sending telegrams.
Well,
I think their technology was ahead of its time.
Well, you got to remember, technology has its flaws, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you're relying on the infrastructure, as you said, infrastructure, internet, the Wi-Fi signal, how strong it is where you're at, how strong it is the person receiving it, and all that in between. You know, that's the grass, the yardage, the area, and it depends on one area that has less Wi-Fi towers and the other area that has more Wi-Fi towers. So the signal is going to be stronger where more of them are.
Maybe the windmills are cutting down the power.
And the windmills and atmospheric, interference.
Oh, yeah.
I was a CB radio guy for years, and I did ham operator.
Yeah.
And even single sideband ham, it all relies on the same thing, the airwaves. But if the airwaves are cloudy or misjudged in any way, you can't get the frequency out. It's weird, but it's true.
Well, you want to talk about taking out power. Lincoln actually won the Civil War for the North, the first thing he actually did, he communicated with his generals via telegrams, and he took out all the telegraph poles of the South so they could not, talk to each other.
Okay.
And that was actually what made the North win. Because if you don't know if you can't talk to anybody, you're kind of in trouble. It's like being blind.
It's communication.
Yeah.
It's a communication thing.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about something that's near and dear to me.
They were so bad. There's another joke. They were excommunicated.
I like that one. But I'm a host at a local. I told you this, at a local historical house.
Right.
And it's a 1730.
Is that the Abbott?
The Abbott house.
Yeah, right. I knew that.
So yeah, you do. So what is so impressive about the colonial type of style
or living?
The living, but I'm just talking more like antique wise. The everything that you see is, and you probably notice, is sculptured more. There's more creativity involved. There's more, woodwork involved, because I know that's all they really had back then.
Well, I'm.
Give me your review on it. Give me your review on it.
Another analogy here,
please.
These first settlers, the people that came in 1607 at Jamestown, the Pilgrims.
Yes.
There's one word that kept them going. What's that word?
I don't know.
It's survival.
Oh, they just keep going. Yeah.
Survival. First of all, if you did not store food, you could not survive the winter. You would have been like that. Remember, I gave you an analogy of the owl. The owl has great hearing. It can hear a mouse in 6 inches of grass. But if it rains or snows, its hearing is muffled. It couldn't hear that mouse if it was 6 inches below its talons.
Right.
So, therefore, that's why a lot of owls starve to death in the winter. And they're an incredible bird. There's so many different types of owls, but it's one of the great birds that I've studied. And but going back to survival, what the one crop that was maybe most important to colonial America?
I'm going to say the corn, but I don't think it is.
Yeah, it's not.
It would be wheat?
Nope.
Was it something they built stuff on? Built stuff around?
Nope.
No, I have no idea.
Apples.
Oh, apples.
Apples may have been the single most important thing to save. Because when you made a house, you dug a subterranean dwelling to store food. You would dig it below the frost line.
Correct.
Now, barrels were just made out of wood. The first ones were not barrels like we know of that whiskey and wine come in.
Right.
They were crudely made, but they still had a curve to them. And they were wrapped with branches and bark and stuff to keep them together. So these are called winter apples. And they were just stored with layers of straw, a layer of apples, straw, apples, blah, blah, blah. They just kept going and going. So that allowed them to have apple pie throughout the winter.
Saved them and survived.
So, and I believe this is where we get that saying, we're as American as apple pie.
Yeah, okay.
So apples were an incredible staple for colonial people. Anything that you didn't have to jar and could leave in its present state is a game breaker. Agreed?
I agree, yeah.
And when you were making apple pies, you also warmed up the house in the stove.
To eat, yeah.
So it was doubly good.
Yeah, no. That's a good point. Very good point.
And they actually had this little bird. They had a little porcelain bird. It's called a pie bird. And they would put it on the pie, and when the bird whistled, the pie was done.
Wait, I don't think I've seen them before.
That's because you're not from colonial America.
No, I've seen them little things that go on the pie somehow, somewhere.
They were little porcelain birds.
Yeah, they
had
right
an
on the
open
pie.
beak, and they literally would whistle like a teapot.
Like I said,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. When it got to that temperature, it would whistle.
That was amazing. The technology back then for them to know that was
Now,
amazing.
I sold out a house not far from here. It's near the Horse Park in New Jersey. The house was built in 1710, one of the oldest houses in New Jersey, and it had a basement and a sub-basement. And they claimed that that home was part of the Underground Railroad back in its day also.
I'm sure it was.
So this house had a cast iron cauldron like 5 feet in diameter. When they would slaughter a hog, they would put it in there to burn all the hair off of this hog.
Mm-hmm.
The smokehouse was still sitting there from 1710 with handmade hooks in it where they would hang hams and smoke them.
Right. We have the smokehouse at Abbott House too.
Yeah. So that was a big, big thing. You had to prepare yourself because those winters were nasty.
Yeah.
You had to have wood. You had to have food. You had to have water. So you needed to store everything, or you're not going to see the spring.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. Some of the things at the Abbott House I want to go over too. There's a thing called the hanging shelf. Can you explain that? Why the hanging shelf? They said the reason why is a hanging shelf because they didn't want it against the wall, again because of rodents or whatever reason, and they wanted it out in the middle of the basement is where it's located.
For what? What's the hanging shelf for?
Well, it's to cool things off because it's cooler down in the cellar.
Well, yeah.
But the hanging shelf was there, they say, to keep the rodents away from being on the walls. In other words, they would go on the walls rather than on the shelf. That's what their thinking was.
Yeah, but what would you put on the shelf then?
Well, they put eggs on there.
The rodent.
Eggs, potatoes.
Well, first of all, you wouldn't use a shelf.
That's what they had.
They would have used baskets.
Mm-hmm.
Handmade.
Well, they got baskets on the shelves too.
If you went to collect eggs, you collected them in a splint basket. Splint baskets were made out of either maple or oak, and they were woven. Mm-hmm. Basically, everything was stored in baskets at that time, and you would just hang them. So the shelf does not necessarily change anything.
Right.
But mason jars and food storage jars have been around a long time.
Yeah.
Crocks have been around a long time. In fact, I was telling you earlier, in Egypt, when they unearthed King Tut's tomb in 1924, Howard Carter, there was an alabaster urn full of honey.
Wow.
And the honey was still good. You could still eat it after 5,000 years.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So now let's go back to the bee as the great engineer. Yeah. I mean, talk about engineering the future.
Yeah.
So, but when this honey was put, and remember, it's very hot in Egypt, extremely hot. When I was working there, I had to work 2:00 in the morning to load a container because I couldn't work during the day. It was too hot. And I'm literally staring at the pyramids as I'm working, which is quite a sight. And they were the tallest structures in the world until the Eiffel Tower was built. That's pretty amazing.
That is amazing. Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to give you a great.
See, I told you, he knows everything. That's why they call him genius.
I'm going to give you the best proverb of Egypt. Let's see if anyone knows the answer. Okay. Here's the proverb. Man fears time, but what's the second part of that? Man fears time. Give up.
Well, time because you're limited.
Man fears time.
Yeah.
But time fears the pyramids because they've been there so long.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's very good.
Proverb, huh?
It's an analogy, yeah. It's really good.
I'll give you an Italian one.
Okay.
Italian proverb. Okay. It's very simple. Very, very simple. My uncle told me a long time ago. It's simple. It's just about orange juice. Just orange juice. It's gold in the morning. It's silver in the afternoon and it's lead at night. So don't drink a lot of screwdrivers at night.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, he's been all over the world. So any questions, any of you guys have any questions for him, he'll answer. But you were in Italy, and tell us
20 times
All
I've
right.
been to Italy. I've been to
Tell us-
more cities there than I have in the United States.
tell us some of your visits. What did you saw?
Well, Rome, I mean, what can you say? That's why it's called the Eternal City.
Yeah.
To me, the greatest building is the Pantheon, not the Colosseum. And if we study the Pantheon, it's a dome that the bees would have orchestrated originally. So if you look at the
So
Pantheon,
that's where they got their structure from, the
Yeah.
bees.
look, God created a perfect blueprint in nature. And if you study every little insect,
Yeah.
the spider is a great engineer.
Yeah.
The ant is up there, but not at the top. You look at one of those thousand-leggers.
Yeah.
Well, the Romans actually studied the thousand-legger, and that's how they moved long pieces of marble that weighed 20 tons. By making a bunch of little rollers, little logs, short, wide, so you literally could steer it where it
Yes.
needed to go.
That's interesting. Very
And
interesting.
and the lever was invented a long time ago by Archimedes. And what is Archimedes' favorite quote of the lever?
Well, leverage, right?
Yeah, he's the father of leverage, but what is his famous quote? He's give me a lever large enough and I can move the world.
Wow.
So that's pretty good, right?
That is true. Yeah. If you guys study science, you would understand that.
The Greeks were the first great inventors, and then the Romans capitalized on it. Actually, the Egyptians invented the column, and it was just made out of a bunch of reeds bundled together. And then the Greeks they morphed into what we call the modern column, how the Parthenon is made. And it's made in sections. But the Romans went even above that. The Pantheon columns are made in one piece.
Wow.
And they were moved from Egypt to Rome. And even those, all those structures in Rome, the Romans moved them all from Egypt. It's unbelievable how they did it.
It's crazy. That's really crazy.
And it goes down to my first question. And what was the answer?
Engineering.
Exactly. Engineering is everything.
That's amazing. So,
if you make a sandwich wrong, it falls down, falls apart.
That's so true. That is so true, yeah. So, you've been here in New Jersey for a long time.
Was born here.
So, you were born here. So, tell us a little bit about you growing up and your family, your mom and your dad. And
well, strictly all Italian. My mother was actually born there, and my father met her there in Italy. We're from a small town called Canada, which there actually are a lot of Canadesi here in the Hamilton, Trenton area.
Oh, okay.
They all seem to come to this area. And maybe one of the most famous ones his name was Rinaldo Sensi. He was like the Italian ambassador, is what I used to call him. And the woman I spoke of earlier, Gilda Baldassari knew him very, very well. But he was one of the first, Italians to really make an impact in Hamilton and Trenton.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
I love to hear the old history. There are Facebook groups, by the way, guys, where people, they talk about Trenton, they talk about the Burg, and they talk about Chambersburg and the Burg and stuff like that. And it's the old times. If you didn't grow up in them days, you would never understand what I'm saying.
Right.
But it's relative history is all it is.
It's like Papa's tomato pop.
Yeah.
He was in the Burg. Now he's in Robbinsville, but he still makes a great product.
Yeah.
And legitimately, he's from 1908. and that pizza connoisseur went there and gave him like an 8.4.
Oh yeah, Dave Portnoy.
Yeah,
from
but
Barstool.
he gave De Lorenzo's in Robbinsville a 9 point something.
I know.
But pizza and tomato pie are two different animals.
Yeah, I know. Well, tell us the difference.
Well,
if you know the difference, because some people don't know. They're like, pizza, tomato pie, same thing.
Tomato pie is less cheese, and that therefore it cooks different.
Mm-hmm.
In Italy, we made another pizza, a white pizza. This was for the Onion Festival, which is every September, by the way, because that area has the sweetest onions there is. So it's a rectangular pizza, thin.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a giant Sicilian, but very thin. It only has onions, garlic, fresh rosemary, fresh parsley, salt, pepper, and olive oil. And it comes out crispy, and then you eat it with sausage and broccoli rabe.
Wow. And no tomato sauce at all, guys.
Now, that is banging.
That's a white pizza.
It's unbelievable.
That sounds amazing.
Because all that cheese just coagulates. You have that pizza without the cheese, you put the broccoli rabe and the sausage, and you make the sandwich. There's nothing that can compare. I don't care who makes cheesesteaks. I don't care who makes this, that, hoagie. It ain't going to compare. It just isn't going to do it.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. Well, let's see. We got about 20 minutes left. So let's talk about, say, what did you do in school? What did you do in school? What was your major? What did you do?
I went from Catholic kindergarten to Catholic high school, St. Anthony's. And I was not a great student. I did not get any big accolades. You don't necessarily learn great things in school, in my opinion. I was good in history and math. I like geography, but collecting stamps and coins will give you that information because it's so. If we look at all our stamps and coins, it's our history in chronological order. So we start with 1776,
right.
With 1876, 1970. It's all in chronological order. If you let kids collect stamps and coins, guaranteed they're going to get an A in history and geography at least. Might not be good at math, but
it's better than nothing.
But that, in fact, I'll go one step further about stamps. What is stamps actually called? It is the hobby of what group of people? It is the hobby of
the elite.
Well, you got to be elite
because you got to have the money to afford the stamps.
Yeah, but it is the hobby of.
Don't know. Stamp collectors.
No. You could be a stamp collector. I could be a stamp collector.
I don't know what that
is. It is the hobby of kings. Kings and presidents always collected stamps.
Okay.
Roosevelt was the biggest stamp collector of presidents. But the biggest stamp collectors were always the monarchs of Europe, mostly of Britain. See, Britain made the first stamp in 1840. It's called the penny black. Because they had to control a far-flung empire throughout the world. We did not hit the stage till 1847 with our stamps. It's a very interesting thing. So now that's the hobby of kings. What's the sport of kings?
Sport of kings. I would probably say, was it polo?
It is polo. You
got that right.
You are going into the final Jeopardy round, Gino. Now, what is the game of kings?
Oh, the game of kings.
That one's easier.
Is that the?
No, that's a sport. Archery? That's a sport, archery.
Game of kings. Is it chess?
It's chess. Okay. Wow, you're definitely in the final Jeopardy round. Holy shit.
Testing me.
Hey, I test people. I make them think, don't I?
Do, yeah.
Okay.
I'm learning a lot and I'm getting tested.
Pick a subject, Gino. You want to talk about sports? You want to talk about basketball?
Let's talk about stamps and coins. What makes a coin or a stamp collectible? I think you know the answer.
Of course I do.
Some kind of know the
Did
answer.
you forget who you're talking to?
No, I know,
kidding.
but I'm just saying.
Okay. If you want to invest in coins, you only collect mint state coins. But it goes one step further. You want to collect things that have a very low mintage.
Meaning that there's not made.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, the greatest American coin that has caused more excitement than any other coin in history is the 1804 silver dollar. There's only 15 known to exist, and one of them sold for either $6 or $7 million.
Wow.
But a lot of people don't know this, that it was not made in 1804. It was made in 1835, between 1835 and 1840, as a special gift to foreign dignitaries. They have to remember, a silver dollar was actually a lot of money in 1804.
It was a full thing of silver, correct?
Yes, it was almost an ounce. A silver dollar is 90% silver, and it weighs 9/10 of an ounce. And they always did, and they always will. So, if we take 1804 dollars, that would almost be like $100 today. Which is a pretty lot of money.
Mm.
So, in 1804, there were probably people working for 50 cents a week.
Oh boy.
Now you have to understand, they had half pennies in that era. The half cent starts in 1792. Philadelphia was the first mint.
What exactly is a half penny?
Just want to tell you, it's a half a cent.
No, I know, but when people say half a penny, it's half of the penny.
Yeah, look.
This,
the large penny was the size of a half a dollar when
right.
we started. The half penny was about the size of a quarter. And it actually was a half a penny. They had 2-cent pieces and they had 3-cent pieces. They had 20-cent pieces. They had a lot of weird numbers because things only cost pennies back then. You know, milk, bread, anything was a half a penny.
Right.
So, but if we take that dollar and it's $100 in today's world, it's still not a good analogy, and I'll tell you why. Let's go to baseball. We're going to switch gears.
Sure, go ahead.
We're going to go to the 1927 Yankees, Babe Ruth. How much was he paid that year?
Babe Ruth, I don't know. Well, he's a high price ball player back then, but I don't know exactly.
He was paid $100,000.
Back then was a lot of money.
I'm going to explain it.
Yeah.
Now, when the owner and the coach were questioned by the sports reporters,
yeah.
You remember this question? They said, how could you pay Babe Ruth more than the president makes? What was their response? He had a better year. So, let's take Babe Ruth's $100,000 salary in 1927 and equate it in today's money. It'd be about $1.5 million. Now, if we look at $1.5 million today, it really doesn't go that far. If you start buying houses and cars and this and that. Now, the $100,000 in Babe Ruth's 1927 year had more buying power than the $1.5 million the guy would have today, because everything was pennies, not dollars.
Well, then what happened?
A house was $5,000.
The money devalued.
Yeah.
And that's why it's worth less.
Inflation is what does it.
Yeah.
So, and that's how we get back to that other word, survival.
Yeah.
So that survival thing has not changed for a long, long time.
Yeah.
It's technology has changed it a little, but we're still in a survival mode.
I'm always in survival mode. Oh boy.
So, is there any baseball fans out there?
No. We have a couple people out
Or
watching.
is there anyone out there?
No, well, there's a couple people out there watching, but
Okay.
I don't know who's out there.
You mean there's literally two people watching?
No, there's more than that. Because you got to remember, they pick up the stream as it goes on, and some may not see it when it first starts, but they'll see it as later, or they'll see it now, they'll see it between.
Well, since we're on Babe Ruth,
Yeah, go ahead. We're sports friends.
My opinion is he's the greatest baseball player of all time. I don't care what anyone says. They don't call it the house that Ruth built for nothing. And another analogy of Ruth. He was a great pitcher. He certainly hit 714 home runs, but most people don't realize that most home run hitters have very low lifetime batting averages.
Yeah, that's true.
Ruth is either 342 or 348 lifetime.
That's good.
Most home run hitters probably have a 270 batting average for their career.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't set him apart yet. He's got the highest slugging percentage in history.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah. And guess who's number 2?
Was he a batting guy or?
Yeah. Well, he's gonna have to bat if he wants slugging percentage.
No, I know, but I'm trying to figure out who was he. Did he win any awards, or was he?
Oh, he won a lot of awards.
Henry Aaron?
No, it's in Ruth's day. It's actually
Ruth's day.
It's Lou Gehrig.
Lou Gehrig, yeah.
Yeah. So there's two of the greatest ever.
Wow.
But there's another little known fact.
I heard a lot about Lou Gehrig.
Yeah. Well, there's another little known fact about Ruth, and it has to do with a something that a manager or owner hates to look at the next day in the box score of the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
It's called LOB, left on base.
Yeah.
So Ruth has the highest slugging percentage with men on base.
Wow.
He cleaned them. That's what puts him in the upper stratosphere.
I understand that.
So
that's interesting.
Now, you want another interesting fact about baseball?
Sure.
Okay. What is the difference between baseball and the other major sports, which are football, basketball, hockey, and soccer? There are 3 differences between baseball and the other 4 major sports, and one of them would have been the real game changer, according to me.
Wow. And the way you think, it's hard. Let me see. I played baseball, I played basketball, and I played, what was the other one?
Well, football, hockey, and soccer.
Yeah, hockey I never played. Football I played. Yeah. Well, the one has got bases. One has got the yardage you run. But that's soccer too. You have the yardage, but you have the goals.
Yeah.
That's pretty similar.
Hockey's got goals.
That's true as well.
Basketball's got goals. That's why they're called field goals.
Yeah.
Football's got them. That's why they're called field goals.
Yeah. Baseball is separate from all of them.
There's 3 little differences. 2 of them, one of them's very minor. It's the only sport where the manager dresses like the players.
Okay.
You ain't gonna see that a football coach coming out with shoulder pads,
right? Right. Yeah.
Okay. The other one, it's the only sport that doesn't have a time limit. Every other sport has a time limit. Mm-hmm. 15-minute quarters, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Baseball, that game could last for 10 hours.
Yeah.
If they're deadlocked. But the third aspect is it's the only sport that does not have a unified playing surface. The infields are all the same, but every outfield is different. Mm-hmm. And that's where you would have had the game changer. If every ballpark had a uniform playing surface, same height walls, everything, home run records would have been drastically different.
Wow.
Agreed?
Yeah. That's good points. A lot of good points.
Yeah, I got a lot of them.
And that's just sports, guys.
Yeah.
You're a wealth of knowledge, but you learned all this over the years, right? You read it.
I read it.
Yeah. And he was telling me.
But I'm going to tell you something about reading. It's useless if you don't retain it.
Well, that's part of it. Yeah. You got to retain it. You do the best you can.
See, you have chain link fence, which everything blows through, or you got fine mesh, which stays in. So you got to try and remember it all.
Well, here's the problem today.
Yeah.
Kids, you understand this, and adults will understand this as well. What you just said is most people will say, I'll just go to Google.
What happens when the system breaks down?
There you go.
You go to
There
ShopRite,
you go.
and if that system breaks down with those scanners, you're going to have a longer line.
Yeah,
You get hammered.
because a lot of kids don't know how to add, they don't know how to subtract, they don't know how to divide, they don't know how to do any of that.
I'm listening to these crazy things on Instagram once in a while, and they're asking these young kids, what city is famous for Boston baked beans? And they said New York.
That's funny.
That is funny.
You know, some of them don't even know where the Boston Tea Party was.
Oh my God. And that's another thing. That's why we're coffee drinkers here. If it wasn't for the Boston Tea Party,
It would be tea drinkers.
we would be drinking tea.
Yeah, no, I agree. I drink tea and coffee, but I like tea more.
Yeah.
So tell people how they can get in touch with you, your information, your contact info.
My cell number.
You don't have to give that. You can give your email or something. You can give your cell number if you want. That's fine.
Well, my cell number is 609-209-0362. And I usually take 35 calls per day.
Oh.
And I sometimes take 6 emails a day and 6 text photos a day.
Wow.
People just send me photos every day, and some of them I dismiss that they're no good. I do appraisals constantly, and back to what I said earlier, a lot of this stuff has just come way down in value. A Hummel that I used to sell for $50, you can buy for $5 now.
Oh, wow.
They're like nothing. Unless you find one that's, I can tell you, they made Hummels this big.
Yeah, my aunt used to have them.
Well, they're worth $3,500, a big one.
Yeah.
They used to bring $6,500, but they're rare as hell. Basically, and then if you look at Daltons and Wedgwood, they're even more common because they were sold at every single British Commonwealth country in the world. I don't care if you went to England, Canada, Newfoundland, Bahamas, Bermuda, they all have that stuff there. All of them.
Well, here's a question. What makes the marking so important on stuff like that? Because when I watch Antique Roadshow, they say, oh, it's got this, it's got that.
Well, let's just pick Lennox.
It was fired here, you know.
All right, let's just pick Lennox, for example. Basically, Walter Scott Lennox bought a company called CAC, which was the Ceramic Art Company, in 1889. It had already been in business for a while. And he renamed it Lennox. And he started with a black mark. Then, as we morphed into the next 40 or 50 years, it went to a green mark. Then, as we morphed to the next 40 or 50 years, it became a gold mark, which it still is today. But the stuff that was made before the Depression was the rarest stuff of all. I can tell you right now that many items were never made again after the Depression. Strawberry forks, ice cream forks. There was so many crazy novelties in the Gilded Age that when the Depression hit, no one had money for these things, whether you were rich or poor or middle class. You were all in the middle. So anything that was very frivolous and over the top wasn't even made anymore. Chocolate pots ceased to exist. That was for the rich between the 1880s and 1910. Basically, when income tax comes in, it stops people in their tracks.
Yeah.
They're not used to this.
Yeah.
They're used to just flaunting their wealth. Do you know how you flaunted your wealth in Philadelphia or New York? back in the early times?
No.
Depended how many steps you had leading up to your house.
Oh.
If you were on like ground level or one step, you paid very little taxes. But if you wanted that grand stairway, you paid a lot of tax. That was flaunting your wealth.
Whoa. Wow.
Yeah. There's a reason for everything in this world if you study it.
I learned a lot. 6 minutes, guys. Well, 5 minutes now. But if you have any questions, you can always reach him on Facebook. He's got a Facebook page.
Yeah, but listen, I am like any other person or creature on this planet.
Email you, right?
No, I have an Achilles heel, and I know nothing about technology. I let other people do that. They call me Mr. No Tech. Other than the cell phone in my pocket, I know nothing of the computer world and wish to know nothing.
I have to ask your thoughts on Bitcoin.
Well, Bitcoin is
It's a bit of a coin, is what it means.
It could have been bought for 50 cents and $1 in its infancy, and is now what, 58,000?
Some
Somewhere
some are more.
Some are more.
Way more.
Well, Bitcoin has a price structure.
Yeah.
They're all the same.
Yeah.
But it is a scary thing to me in that you can't physically hold it or see it like holding an ounce of gold, which is at $2,500 now. So Bitcoin, there's been people who had it and then lost the numbers.
I know.
And trying to find the numbers on Bitcoin is more daunting than trying to win a lottery. It's probably easier to win the lottery than to find the numbers you lost on Bitcoin. Because it's letters and numbers. Yeah, I do know a little bit about it.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
yeah, maybe you could find it. Sometimes people had it just scribbled on pieces of paper in their desks and then forgot about it.
That's very true.
How about the guy who I think he gave 5 Bitcoins for a pizza.
There are people that trade Bitcoins.
And it might not even have been a good pizza. Who the hell knows?
Well, think about it this way. Like he said, you're not holding the coin. You're holding a bit of the coin. So the bit of the coin, does that mean it's going to be value? Like a certificate of gold, right?
It's almost like that candy bar, bit of honey.
Toilet paper. Yeah, exactly. Like
Well,
paper.
In the Civil War, that paper money were called shin plasters. Because that's about all they were good for.
Yeah. But they said certificate of gold or certificate of this.
But once the gold standard was eliminated in 1933, that changed everything.
Right.
I've got a $10 gold certificate here right now in this collection, but you would only get $10.
Yeah, you give the value of what it is. Yeah.
But listen, we're the only country in the world where our money and our stamps are still worth what they say on it. You could use a stamp 50 years old and put it on a letter, and it's still going to go.
Yeah.
But Germany, Japan, every single country that went through wars, their currencies were all devalued and are worth nothing unless you find silver coins. Silver always has value, but paper doesn't.
That's true.
And it's just the opposite today. If you have paper money that's current, you can trade it in for US.
Right.
But you cannot get rid of coins because they're too heavy.
What about foreign currencies?
Well, people can pay me in euros, English pounds,
right,
or USD. But I take euros all the time. I got bags just of euro coins.
Okay.
They're 1 and 2 euros, and you can't trade them in. You can trade in paper money, but I just save it. If I go to Italy, I got money.
There you go. All right, guys, we're almost done. But I want to thank Gene for his time today. We're at his place here, located in Heightstown. What is the name of the street? Monmouth Street?
Yep, 278 Monmouth Street. I am open tomorrow from 12 to 5.
Please make appointments if you want him to evaluate or
they can text the photos to that same cell number. I look at them constantly.
And you said you go into places and look at things too every now and then too.
Most of the time, I only go with photos first.
See what they have, and then you have an idea.
In fact, I have another little tidbit to tell you.
Good.
What does the photo say?
What do you mean? What does this
There's a saying. A photo says
picture?
no, a photo says 1,000 words.
Okay.
I changed it. Stops me from listening to 1,000 words.
Okay. No, I understand.
No, that's it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys. He plays mind games, but he's an awesome guy. But anytime you want to deal with anybody that's honest, with gold or silver,
And knows what the hell he's talking about.
this is the guy. This is the guy. Don't go anywhere else. People send their things in the mail and they pay insurance. I have a couple of friends that done that. They didn't get their thing back, and they didn't get the value for it, so they lost both. Make sure you can handle it. Write to this guy, and then you get whatever you get back for it. Okay. Everybody have a great night. This is the show.
I'm surprised we didn't have any questions.
Well, a lot of people didn't see it. Probably.
Oh. Okay. So we're out of time.
We're done.